That, to me, allows me to speak on behalf of the people who elected me to bring their concerns to Victoria and be able to be a better voice for them and not necessarily be told, no, you got to be quiet over there. We're not talking about that, and this is how we're going to vote. That window has been opened up, and to me, it was like a breath of fresh air. And it's, I think, what most people, when they put their name beside, put their ex beside a name, I think that's what they think should happen. And I think that a lot of people are surprised that there's actually a whip to vote. And to the extent that party politics now gets in the way, you need to have alignment. So you philosophically or politically, you know what, I agree with those policies. So that's the party I want to vote for. And that's why I became a member of the Conservative Party of British Columbia.
All right. This is MLA Bruce Banman for Abbotsford South joining us on Rebel News and giving us some insight that not a lot of politicians would. That is the admission that, in your own words, you went against your conscience, and we're going to tell you why. So thanks for being on Rebel News.
Well, you're most certainly welcome. And yes, you're talking about the vote that happened, I believe it was in April. And it was a vote put on the floor by the NDP that was basically condemning the trucker convoy. And as we now know, the courts have upheld and said, huge victory for democracy and freedom of speech, in my opinion, that in fact that the government, federal government, overstepped its bounds and actually infringed on people's Charter of Rights when it came to their ability to express themselves with regards to the trucker convoy.
Yeah.
So to backtrack into Victoria, what happened was there was a vote that came upon the floor. And there's different types of votes. One, they're legislative, and others are symbolic. This was a symbolic vote. So it's not like government was going to fall if it got defeated. It was a vote that basically said, you can say, hey, isn't apple pie lovely? It was one of those kinds of votes that gets put on the floor, and it was symbolic in nature. I was told by my party, the former BC Liberal / United Party, that was under the leadership of Kevin Falcon. I was told, look, we are all going to vote in favor of this. And for those of you that have a problem with that, don't be in the building. Mm-hmm. So there was no option to vote no. And what I regret was that in my heart of hearts, I knew that I should vote no against this, because what I saw is that this was really condemning people that wanted to express their opinion. Mm-hmm. And I believe that free speech is precious, and people have a right to go to the lawn of the most important building in the country or in the province, or go to City Hall and state their beef with whatever it is they have with government, or whatever it is that they wish to express. And, provided that that is not hateful or violence-inducing, and there are laws that cover that. But I was left in this position where, do I stay and go against my party and suffer the consequences that come with that, or do I leave? And I left. And I regretted it then, and it was a pivotal moment for me where I looked at my leader with a totally different set of eyes and wondered, I was disappointed in myself. Mm-hmm. I regret doing it, and I was very disappointed in my party, and I was very disappointed in my leader.
Wow, this is some juicy stuff. As a journalist who's been trying to cover the other side of the story when it came to what I call government overreach, with many things linked to whether it be vaccine mandates or, of course, the trucker convoy being trampled out by the Trudeau regime. But one thing I know that I had questions of, but many of the people who follow Rebel News, they wanted to know, why were so many people in positions of power silent during these things? And so you're really shedding light on something there. And it wasn't just politicians, although I would say you guys probably got the most focus. But, we saw it with doctors. There were doctors who were dealing with injuries and still okay with, medical coercion all of a sudden. We saw it with police officers in literally every category. And at one point, I had to tell myself, people are just people. It's not as easy as it looks.
Basically, what people don't understand in party politics, especially in Canada, if you have a major vote that goes sideways, you can have a vote of non-confidence in Canada, and you can have a change of government. So it's not unusual to have what's called whipped votes, where you're told, hey, we're going to vote in favor of this, or we're not going to vote in favor of this. And most parties have what's called a no surprise clause, where if, look, I got a problem with this one, that's discussed upon. And having a part, you have to have certain values, and have party voting in a similar way is normal. But in this particular case, and like I said, that's more important when it's a legislative vote versus a symbolic vote.
Right.
And what really disappointed me in this was nothing more than sticking the finger in the air. What way is the political wind blowing? And at that point, the majority of Canadians were upset with the truckers. I think that the convoy actually stayed too long. But that could have been avoided had the Prime Minister come out and talked to them like other leaders of other parties did. I think they would have said, okay, we've been heard. We didn't like the discussion, but we can go home now. We've at least been listened to.
Well, that's what they said they'd do.
Well, exactly. And, it comes down to, I may not agree with what you say, but I sure as heck agree with your right to say it. Provided it falls under those following rules of hate and inducing violence and a few other things. But peaceful protest is the foundation of democracy. And I guess where I was disappointed in myself is I let peer pressure get to me. And I'm a human like everybody else. It's tough sometimes to go against the flow. I did the next best thing, which was I left the building.
Yeah.
So I didn't vote in favor of it. I couldn't. But if I had a redo, and I think in life all of us want a redo once in a while, I would have stayed, and I would have voted against it, and I would have taken whatever punishment was coming my way after the vote with my own party.
Well, I know people are always skeptical of politicians, but I believe you would. And the reason why I believe you would do that is because of your actions of recent. You've crossed the floor into the Conservative Party of BC. You helped give them official party status. And you guys have been raising some heads in the House and also amplifying the voices of some people that, just like the truckers, just like the pro-freedom crowd, in particular, people concerned with parental rights who are being vilified in certain ways for genuine concerns. So you guys are raising issues like that in the House. But you mentioned this choice of not being there. And as a journalist, when I covered this story, I noticed that. I noticed there was quite a few people who weren't there, and I kind of asked around, and I heard that they were present that day, just not physically there during the vote. So I reached out to one that I felt would be more on the conservative side of things, which was MLA Ellis Ross. And boy, was I right, because now he's leaving. He's leaving the BC Uniteds to run for the federal Conservatives. But I reached out to him, and just to kind of offer another opinion there, his response was he felt like it was a trap. It was, if you vote one way, you're in trouble, and if you vote the other way, you're in trouble too. So I wanted to add that caveat there.
Right now, we still have the rest of this session to go through. We don't know when government is actually going to drop the writ or call the election. They've said that it's going to be in October when it's scheduled. I have to just follow up on something you said. One of the things, and one of the major reasons why I crossed, was when John Rustad and I talked. He said to me that the concerns of my constituents come first, and the party comes second. Will we have to vote a line and have to have agreements on how we vote? I would imagine we'll have those discussions. Absolutely. We do now, the two of us. What do you think? And we keep in mind that there may be something that comes on the floor that says, no, you know what, John, I can't. I cannot support this one. And that's what really brought me over, because that, to me, allows me to speak on behalf of the people who elected me to bring their concerns to Victoria and be able to be a better voice for them and not necessarily be told, no, you got to be quiet over there. We're not talking about that, and this is how we're going to vote. That window has been opened up, and to me, it was like a breath of fresh air. And it's, I think, what most people, when they put their name beside, put their ex beside a name, I think that's what they think should happen. And I think that a lot of people are surprised that there's actually a whip to vote. And to the extent that party politics now gets in the way, you need to have alignment. So you philosophically or politically, you know what? I agree with those policies. So that's the party I want to vote for. And that's why I became a member of the Conservative Party of British Columbia. That was the beginning. There was other things that I wasn't 100% happy with, but nothing, you're never going to be in 100% agreement with anyone. I'm married. My wife and I don't agree on every little thing. And for those of you at home that are married or have a significant other, I'm sure you can understand. Right. But so why would you think it's any different in politics? This, to me, was the beginning. And I am glad that the courts have, it's a huge breath of relief for me to go, you know what? I actually was right. Should have voted. The courts have come in favor of it. And, I often said, look, this is a dangerous step for me, for government to be able to go in there, especially when you consider that they were now closing down bank accounts for foreign influence. Now, foreign influence is an issue. But are we now going to see other groups? And I would say to those that disagree with the trucker movement, well, take a movement that you do agree with. Maybe it's environment. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's parental rights. And all of a sudden, you now find out that government decides they're going to use this tactic basically to shut your voice down, and they're going to seize your bank accounts or charge you or do whatever it is that was done. I thought it was overreach, and I am thankful that the courts see the same way I did.
Well, I know a lot of you watching agree with that as well. Thanks so much for being on Rebel News, Abbotsford South MLA Bruce Banman. And you can find more information at their website. They are the Conservative Party of BC.
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Well, there you have it. It sounds like Bruce Banman feels free now to represent his constituents in the way that he feels best fit. As I work for Rebel News, an independent news outlet, I know what it's like to be free to bring you reports that you deserve to hear. And that's why I'm going to have my boots on the ground like no other reporter in British Columbia to bring you reports you can trust on this upcoming provincial election. If you want to help support our coverage from the ground, go to rebelfieldreports.com and chip in what you can.